On Monday, gold was sitting at 4,229, and I told you 4,100 was the line. Gold never touched 4,100. It went straight to 4,600. That was Wednesday's high. And it closed today at 4,505. That is not a random bounce. That is $376 of appreciation in 48 hours, inside a war that, instead of de-escalating, is actively spreading. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what is happening, where we are technically, and what I think happens between now and Friday. The war enters its 26th day today. The U.S. and Israel have been striking Iran since February 28th, but what changed this week changes the entire picture. First, Trump paused planned attacks on Iranian power plants for 5 days. That sounds like diplomacy. It is not. Iran rejected a 15-point peace plan delivered by Pakistan and said it will only negotiate on its own terms. It also demanded international recognition of Iranian sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. The United States will never accept that condition, which means there is no real negotiation happening right now. Second, Saudi Arabia intercepted 47 Iranian drones in a single night, including 38 in just 3 hours, flying directly over its eastern region, where Ghawar and Abqaiq are located. Those are the 2 largest oil installations on the planet. Kuwait, Bahrain, and the UAE are also under attack, and Iran struck the British military base at Akrotiri in Cyprus, pulling the UK directly into a conflict it was not participating in. This war is no longer contained to the Middle East. Third, 2,000 ships and 20,000 sailors are currently trapped in the Strait of Hormuz. Oil is up 45% since the war started. Brent is above $110, and Washington is now openly discussing a blockade or occupation of Kharg Island, which is Iran's primary oil export terminal. If that happens, we are in a completely different level of escalation. Now, here is why gold moved the way it did. On Monday, the market bought into the idea that diplomacy was possible. The dollar strengthened, gold fell. Exactly the mechanic I explained in the last video. When there is an expectation of resolution, real yields rise, the dollar gets bid, and gold pays the price. But when Iran rejected the peace plan and it became clear there was no real deal on the table, gold repriced immediately from 4,229 to a high of 4,600 in 2 days. That is the market doing its job correctly. Technically, gold tested the resistance zone between 4,550 and 4,600, which aligns with the 100-day moving average. It closed below that zone at 4,505. That tells you the sellers are still present. The RSI is still below 50. This is not a clean breakout yet. It is a test. The key levels you need to watch through Friday are the following. Immediate support at 4,470. If gold holds above that level, the structure stays intact. Strong demand zone between 4,350 and 4,400, which is where institutional money has been active. Next resistance at 4,600, and if that breaks with conviction on volume, the next target is 4,800 to 4,960. Now, let me give you the 2 scenarios for Friday, and I will be honest about the probabilities. Scenario 1, escalation continues. I give this 65% probability. Iran keeps refusing to negotiate. The U.S. moves forward with the Kharg Island blockade or strikes, oil tests $130, and gold breaks 4,600 on volume and targets 4,800 to 4,960 by the end of the week. In this scenario, gold begins to decouple from the dollar. Fear overrides the yield mechanic. This is the environment where you start seeing numbers that looked aggressive 3 months ago become realistic. Scenario 2, diplomacy surprises. I give this 35% probability. Trump announces a genuine ceasefire or extends the pause significantly. Oil pulls back, the dollar rallies. Gold loses 4,470 and tests the 4,350 to 4,400 zone. That would be painful to watch in the short term, but it would not change the structural case. Central banks are buying record volumes of physical gold. U.S. debt is adding over $1 trillion every 100 days. The dollar's credibility is eroding slowly but permanently. None of that changes because there is a 5-day pause. The reason I assign only 35% to diplomacy is simple. Iran demanded sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz as a precondition. That is an impossible negotiating position for the United States to accept, which means either Iran is bluffing at enormous risk or they genuinely do not want a deal right now. Either way, the war continues. Here is what you do with this information. If you are already positioned in gold, physical, ETF, or contracts, the critical level this week is 4,470. While gold holds above that level, the structure is intact. If it loses that level, the next stop is 4,350, and you reassess there calmly. If you've been waiting for an entry, the zone between 4,470 and 4,550 is where institutional money has been operating. It's not a comfortable entry emotionally. Wars never are. But the biggest opportunities in this cycle have rarely been comfortable. The structural trend has not changed. The war is in the 4th week with no resolution in sight. Gold is not at the end of this run. It is in the middle of it. Watch 4,470, watch 4,600, watch what happens with Kharg Island. When the picture shifts, I will be back with the full update. If this gave you clarity, share it with someone who is watching their portfolio and doesn't understand why. Drop a comment below. Which scenario do you think plays out? I read every single one. XAU Decoded.